Good evening to all of you. So, today we are here for our next part of the Organon. Today we will be doing aphorisms 259 to 263. Dr. Hahnemann describes about the diet and regimen in these following aphorisms, that what kind of diet or what kind of regimen we should tell our patient to have, what precautions he should take during the time of the treatment. And in many cases, they prove to be of so much importance. Why I'm saying many cases, and see, it depends upon the sensitivity of the patient. Before starting, let me just clear about that. What thing can affect the cure? Like what thing can basically stop the cure from happening? We cannot say beforehand. Okay? So anything which we find that these things in his diet or these things in his regimen, these things in his routine can affect his cure, can affect his treatment, can affect the action of the remedy, we must give the patient an awareness about all this thing. So depending upon the sensitivity of the patient, we can just tell them to avoid certain things in all the cases. And then from individual case to case, we can tell that not to do something which they have been doing, something in their eating, something in their jobs. We have to guide them along with the medicine so they can get healthy soon. So we will go with a general account of what is preferred in the diet, what is not preferred in the diet in these aphorisms. And then in the practice, we can try what more specifically we can tell our patients according to their lifestyles, what they can do, what they should avoid, what they need to do. Certain things like, for example, the exercise or some routine walk. Many patients they avoid it. They have a sedentary lifestyle, so they need to do some things like that so that their health can improve at a much faster, much quicker rate. So we'll go to aphorisms. We'll start with the aphorisms, and then we will keep uh, discussing what more than that could be done. So we'll start with aphorism 259. Considering the minuteness of the doses, now the doses which we are giving, we have established this thing that our dose should be minute, should be very small, smallest that it can be. So considering that thing that our doses are very minute, considering the minuteness of the doses necessary and proper in homeopathic treatment, and that is what is necessary, that we should give a minute dose, we can easily understand that during the treatment, everything must be removed from the diet and regimen which can have any medicinal action. So we have already given a medicine, we have already given a homeopathic dose to act on the body. So anything else which can hinder that action by its own medicinal action, that needs to be removed from the diet and regimen because our dose is very minute. So that for that subtle action which is going on in the body, that health process, that cure process is going on, the health is being established, nothing should basically disturb that action. We have to take that in our mind, we have to take care of that in order that the small dose may not be overwhelmed and extinguished or disturbed by any foreign medicinal irritant, so that its action is not disturbed or completely extinguished or kind of sometimes overwhelmed. So to avoid all those things, we need to take care of the diet and regimen. We need to guide the patient regarding the diet and the regimen. Footnote: Dr. Hahnemann gives an example of the thing which he has said, that because of the minuteness of the dose, the softest tones of a distant flute, that in the still midnight hours would inspire a tender heart with exalted feelings and dissolve it in religious ecstasy. For example, in the midnight hours and the night, there is some very soft tones of a flute. Very distantly, someone is playing a flute, and we can listen to those soft tones in the mid of the night. and that can inspire us, that can, produce an exalted feeling in ourselves, are inaudible and powerless amid discordant cries and the noise of the day. But during the cries, during that noise of the day, when the vehicles are running, the machines are working, everyone is speaking, everyone is talking, those, if still a person is playing a flute at the same tone, we would not be able to hear it. We will not be able to, get inspired by it. So similarly in the medicine also, the medicine is that like that softest tone which is running in the body. And if there is something very strong which is against it, which that will not let the medicine to show its action. Hence the careful investigation into such obstacles to cure. So these obstacles to cure, we have to investigate very carefully what kind of things the patients are having, is so much the more necessary in the case of patients affected by chronic diseases. Now, don't think that if your patient is taking some strong medicinal substances, then you need to give a strong dose. No, that rule cannot be broken down. Okay, again, if your patient is having something strong, for example, he takes coffee regularly, if he's taking some kind of medicinal substances regularly, some herbal teas or something like that, that does not mean that if you give a strong dose of medicine, then it will affect. No, it will not happen like that. That rule cannot be broken. We have to give the minute dose. So what we have to take care of is these kind of obstacles to cure, which can happen even if your medicine is right. We have to take care of them. We have to make the patient understand this thing. Hence, the careful investigation into such obstacles to cure is so much the more necessary in the case of patients affected by chronic diseases. Right? So, in cases of chronic diseases, this becomes very important because disease have been running from a long time. The habits of the patients have been running from a long time. So, we need to carefully investigate in those things what kind of the things the patient are used to taking in their diets or in their daily routine, what kind of habits they are used to, as their diseases are usually aggravated by such noxious influences and other disease causing errors in the diet and regimen, which often pass unnoticed. So many times the diseases or the symptoms, they are aggravated by these things. They these kind of diets or regimen, they can become obstacle to cure, but they sometimes also aggravate. For example, if someone is having cough or some irritability of throat and he's a smoker, so whenever he smokes, he also observes that some irritation or this throat problem that increases. So that can also become obstacle to cure if he's taking something which already aggravates his problem. Then that can also become an obstacle to the cure. So we have to take we have to see carefully into the everyday diet and the regimen of the patient. So footnote, here are some examples which we need the patients to, which we need to tell the patients to avoid. So first is the coffee. Mostly we say to the patient not to have anything which contains coffee, which have caffeine in it, because it is a very strong antidote. Many patients, in almost all the patient, it completely nullifies the effect of the medicine. Sometimes even the amelioration which has been achieved, it goes back. So it also aggravates the disease. Coffee, fine Chinese and other herb teas, beer prepared with medicinal vegetable substances unsuitable for the patient state. If you want to have here he has given few examples. If you want to have a broader view about what things Dr. Hahnemann has told us to avoid, you can go and read it in the lesser writings of Dr. Hahnemann. There is an essay about what kind of things should be avoided or what kind of things have the medicinal properties in it. The things which we eat in day-to-day life, but they have that medicinal properties in it and they can basically uh, have certain changes on our health. So he has given a beautiful detailed view on those things in his lesson of writing. There is an essay, so you can go and you can study about it. So-called fine liquors made with medicinal spices, all kinds of punched, spiced chocolate, odorous water, and perfumes of many kinds. Okay, so when we are using the perfumes or we are taking some kind of water which has an odor in it, that can also antidote the medicine. Strong scented flowers in the apartment, tooth powders and essences and perfumed sachets compounded of drugs, highly spiced dishes and sauces, spiced cakes and ices, crude medicinal vegetables for soups, dishes of herbs, roots, and stalks of plants possessing medicinal qualities, old cheese and meats that are in a state of decomposition or that possess medicinal properties. So, any kind of cheese or meat which is in the state of decomposition should be avoided, or any kind of meat which has medicinal properties, such as the flesh and the fat of the pork, ducks, and geese, or veal that is too young and sour wines. These kind of meats they should be avoided because of the medicinal properties, or just as certainly to be kept from patients as they should avoid all excesses in food. Any kind of excess in food should be avoided. Mean overeating should be avoided. The patient should only eat as much as is required. And in the use of sugar and salt, any kind of excess use of sugar and salt, as also spirituous drinks, heated rooms, woolen clothing next to the skin, that should also be avoided, which should be exchanged in warm weather, first for cotton and then for linen garments. A sedentary life in close apartments or the frequent indulgence in mere passive exercise, such as riding, driving, or swinging, any kind of passive exercises. For example, riding, at that time, riding meant riding a horse, but even now, some kind of driving or doing something which is passive, but it is producing a strain. For example, when you are driving, you are always into a state of sympathetic activity. So all those kind of things they should be avoided. Prolonged suckling in an infant, it should be avoided. The prolonged suckling, taking a long siesta in a recumbent position posture. Okay, siesta is basically afternoon sleep. So taking a long afternoon sleep, and especially by lying down, that should be avoided. Sitting up long at night should be avoided. Uncleanliness, unnatural debauchery, innervation by reading obscene books or subjects of anger, grief, or vexation, a passion for play. So, any kind of reading which can excite you into anger, into grief, or into vexation, that should also be avoided. A passion for play, overexertion of mind or body, dwelling in marshy districts, damp rooms, and penurious living. Penurious mean living in poor conditions, etc. All those things should be avoided. All these things must be as far as possible avoided or removed. Okay, as far as possible, as much as possible, all these things they should be avoided and removed by the patient, in order that the cure may not be obstructed or rendered impossible. So there are many things which we need to tell the patient to avoid. Many things, for example, if I talk about vegetables, certain vegetables which Dr. Hahnemann has told, they have become part of our daily diet. Many kind of things have become part of our daily diet, but still we must uh, beware the patient, that these things might have effect on your health. So avoid them as much as possible. you know Avoid those kind of nowadays, the books, the reading of a book is on decline, but we go for more movies or some kind of web series, but they can also produce that kind of excitement. So we can also guide the patient, certainly, that you should avoid these kind of things which produce these kind of emotions in you. News, that has become a very big part of today's irritation, anger, and everything which is going on. Okay, if the patients are subject of those kind of diseases which are aggravated by these kind of things, They must avoid this thing. For example, I used to have a patient who would watch the news and get so angry that his palpitation would start. So that should be avoided while taking the medicine, because if you are having anything which can cause an injury to you, then the medicine will not affect or will not have a proper energy to cure the patient completely. So all those things which are injurious, they should be avoided. Some of my disciples seem needlessly to increase the difficulty of patients' dietary by forbidding the use of many more tolerably indifferent things, which is not to be commended. So he's saying that right now, many of my disciples, they tell the patient to stop many more things, although they are of dietary importance, but from Dr. Hahnemann's part, they should not be stopped. Anything which is of dietary or nutritious to the body, that should not be stopped. Okay. The most appropriate regimen during the employment of medicine in chronic diseases consists in the removal of such obstacles to recovery and in supplying where necessary the reverse. Okay. So first we must remove these kind of obstacles. Any kind of obstacle which is for the cure of the patient, they should be removed, and we have to apply wherever necessary the reverse. Reverse means anything which can hasten or help in the recovery of the patient, anything which can help in the establishment of health, that should be advised to the patient. For example, innocent moral and intellectual recreation, any kind of moral recreation, any kind of intellectual recreation, for example, reading of certain good books or good articles, something which can increase the intellectual part of the patient on a gooder side, on a better side. Active exercise in the open air in almost all kinds of weather, like daily walks, light manual labor, they should be encouraged. Suitable nutritious unmedicinal food and drinks, they should be advised to the patient that you can take these things, but they should be unmedicinal. Many times nowadays, whatever food or drinks nowadays, on the internet or by the doctors, which are being told that the patient should take this thing or that thing, or most of them are medicinal, so they can affect the patient's health. So we need to take care of that thing. We need to advise our patients not to take anything which contains medicinal value during the treatment. In acute diseases, on the other hand, except in cases of mental alienation, the subtle, unerring internal sense of the awakened life-preserving faculty determines so clearly and precisely that the physician only requires to counsel the friends and attendants to put no obstacles in the way of the voice of nature. So this you will be seeing all the time in the acute diseases, that when the patient is in a state of some acute disease and some acute fever, some acute episode of something which is going on, many times the patient, they stop eating certain things and they demand for certain things. Okay. So during that time, there is a subtle, unerring internal sense of awakened preserving faculty. So there is some internal voice, this voice of nature, which is there in the patient, which tells the patient not to take something or to take something. And the physician should listen to that. He should counsel the friends and attendants to listen to that. Especially in the cases of children, when the child is sick and he refuses something, never give that thing to the child. Or what he wants for, give him that thing, whatever he is asking for. Obstacles in the way of the voice of nature by refusing anything the patient urgently desires. Whatever the patient desires very urgently, that should not be refused in the way of food or by trying to persuade him to partake of anything injurious. And we should not persuade the patient to take anything which he does not want. So in acute diseases, this becomes a very a unique kind of experience which you can see, which you can observe, that the patient will only require or ask for that thing which is good for him or her at that time. So the desire of the patient affected by an acute disease with regard to food and drink is certainly chiefly for the things that give palliative relief. So at that time, whatever the patient wants, whatever the desire is for any kind of food or drink, because that gives a palliative relief to the patient at that time. They are, however, not strictly speaking, of a medicinal character and merely supply a sort of want. Okay. So these are not the, although we are saying that it is palliative relief, but that does not constitute those things as medicine. They will never become medicine. They are just telling that patient's needs or something which he wants. The slight hindrances that gratification of this desire within moderate bounds could oppose to the radical removal of the disease will be amply counteracted and overcome by the power of homeopathically suited medicine. So if taking that kind of thing, for example, if a patient is suffering from cough, okay, but he requires something cold, we know that it might aggravate, but he is craving for that thing. So even if it causes some kind of hindrance, this gratification or this completion of that desire of that patient, even if it produces certain kind of hindrance, certain kind of obstacle, that would be amply counteracted and overcome by the power of homeopathically suited medicine. The medicine will overpower that hindrance, will overpower whatever slight disturbance, that gratification, that completion of the desire by taking that certain food or drink, that will be overcome by the homeopathic medicine, and the vital force set free by it, as also by the refreshment that follows from taking what has been so ardently longed for. Okay, so the vital force, it will get free, it will get healed by the medicine which is being given and by the refreshment which he so ardently longed for which he craved for, was given to him. That will set the vital force free to cure itself. In like manner, in acute diseases, the temperature of the room and the heat or coolness of the bed coverings must also be arranged entirely in conformity with the patient's wish. Okay, because at that time it is not a habit, it is the phase of the disease which the body itself wants to, kind of palliate. In chronic diseases, why this will not work is because it is coming out of habit. That desires are coming out of long prolonged habits which the patient has formed in himself. So here it is not the same case. So even the coldness of the room or the heat of the room or any bed coverings, they should be according to the patient's wish. He must be kept free from all overexertion of mind and exciting emotions. Okay, any kind of overexertion of mind and any kind of excitement of emotions, he must be kept free from them at that time in the acute diseases. Okay, this is however rare. So Dr. Hahnemann is giving an example that this thing which I am going to tell you about, this is very rare. Thus, for instance, in pure inflammatory diseases, where aconite is so indispensable, whose action would be destroyed by partaking of vegetable acids, the desire of patient is almost always for pure cold water only. So there are certain inflammatory diseases where aconite is required, and the action of that medicine will be destroyed by the vegetable acids. Any kind of vegetable acid, if we give during the action of the aconite, it will disturb the action. So the patient will not ask for any such thing at that time. Even the patient knows that this thing is not good for me. So there will be only that pure desire for the cold water. So he's giving this example that this is seen. This is the experience that the patient will only ask for those things which will be more helpful in his healing, or which will make him feel better at that particular time. And those things, they rarely affect any kind of obstacle to the cure of the patient in regards to the homeopathic medicine. Okay? So these two things in our chronic and acute cases we need to take care of when we are talking about the diet and the regimen. So next aphorism will be regarding the preparation of the medicines, how the medicine should be prepared. So we will take that up next time. Again, I will request you all to go through these aphorisms once again, you can go and read that chapter, that article in the lesser writings. You can have a more clear view of the diet and regimen, or what things can affect our body medicinally, and how they affect if we are taking it from a long time. Even a healthy man, if they are taking those medicinal things from a long time, they start affecting the body. Because as a homeopath, okay, when you go through those things, some it will come to the mind automatically. It will come to the mind that how we can tell the patient to stop taking so many things. The patient will not take the medicine instead. Okay, yeah, maybe. But as a homeopath, as a physician, it is our duty to make patient aware that these things can avoid the health more in future. So if you can avoid these things up to whatever extent you can, it is good for you. Okay, it can help with the medicine. It can help you to preserve your health. Once you become healthy, to preserve the health, that will be essential for you. So as much as you can avoid, it will be better for you. We need to make patient aware of this thing. Okay, so that in future, if he finds anything disturbing in his body, he can correlate that yes, these things were told by the doctor, to by my doctor not to take. Okay, so that can become an alarming thing for him, that can help like an alarm, that okay, now is the time to stop. Okay, so with that, I will take your leave. We will meet next time and we will talk about the further aphorisms. Thank you. Thank you very much.